Hey y'all, welcome back to Ascending with Ashley. I'm Ashley. And this is a story time for the most part. This week I found a YouTube channel called Soft White Underbelly. And it is stories and interviews. It's interviews, but stories of folks who have been through all sorts of things: drug addicts, prostitutes, pimps, homeless folks, a lot of things like that, mental illness. And a lot of the interviews are done on Skid Row, or in Skid Row. And for those of you that don't know, I was in Skid Row for my master's. I worked with an organization in Skid Row. That's how I met my son's dad. And, so I was like around Skid Row, but I had no fucking clue what was actually going on. And so when I found like this channel, I was still very shielded. And I told my son's dad, I'm like, I'm so glad I did not know the extent of like what was happening while I was there. But anyway, all this to say is like, I'm such a sensitive person. I mean, most folks that watch these things, it's a common response. But like, this shit was crazy. And I just like found myself binge watching these interviews because they're just so fascinating and folks really have this outlet. So I highly recommend watching these because it's stories you're not going to hear, more than likely. Wow. It's life Do you like the banana flavor? Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to come out here and share about it. And talk a little bit about my experience in Skid Row. Like I said, I had no idea the extent of what was happening. We lived in South Central. We were how many blocks west of Fig, but Figueroa is like down in the 100 blocks is like huge for prostitutes and pimps. I mean, I've been to some of the motels in that area, but I was like with my son's dad, I bought my car from a guy who like worked down in Compton, which is the 100 blocks. And so I'm like reflecting on these things and I'm like, wow, like the amount of disassociation that I had while I was like living this, was pretty huge. So this past week I've been really drained and remembering things and experiences because it was like these folks' stories were catalysts for that. And I did some amazing work. I had a women's group and a mental health group that was co-ed, both all. But I did have a women's group, and I did have women who were, in prostitution in my groups and heard stories from them. And that was really hard, being in that space, holding that space, because it's not an experience I've ever had. And it's not something I would ever wish on anyone. And so, I knew that these things were happening. I saw prostitutes, and I think it's really the prostitution is really affected me a lot, but like the drug use too, I was walking around Skid Row. We were doing community watch. I would just walk around Skid Row all the time. Like, I felt safe because my son's father is very well known in that community, very well respected. So for me, I never felt threatened, and I'm so grateful because listening to these stories of these women down there, and I had relationships with women in those spaces, but it wasn't because I was in a relationship with his father. It wasn't to the extent of like what those relationships could have looked like, like it was more just polite comrades or, folks in the same space. It wasn't really like, some of my relationships were more than that. But anyway, all that to say is like, I saw women turning tricks, I saw those things happening. I had women in my groups sharing their experiences about like working Hollywood, and but I encourage you all to look at the Soft White Underbelly channel. It just brought this life back, you know. I could not handle how absolutely devastating it is that people are, like, these atrocities of Skid Row. Like, the fact that the city, like, I was working with an organization that, you know, hi baby, I was keeping the city in check about homelessness and stuff, and but just, it's absolutely devastating that folks are living like that. And I think that, you know, I was in Skid Row for a few years, Skid Row, downtown LA, the hood, sort of. We were like right on the line of the hood. But I think one of the things that one day in particular, I remember going to the police commission, because like I said, the organization, we would go to, you know, City Hall, and I mean, they still do. I was just there. And like the police commission and stuff, and, you know, with Black Lives Matter and other organizations around the area. And I remember one day in particular going to a police commission. It's at like 9 in the morning on Tuesdays. No, I don't remember what days the police commission is. Tuesdays is Shitty Hall. But anyway, and I just remember this distinction. And I had been in Skid Row for a few years at that point, you know, doing work or whatever. And Skid Row was located in like the largest wholesale district in the country. So it's like a bunch of warehouses, a lot of fucking clothes, and just it's so many goods, you know. So there's boxes. If you haven't seen Skid Row before, I would check out, just do a quick search. You'll get that like metal headband from the 80s, but you'll also get pictures of like what Skid Row is. Anyway, one day in particular when we were at the police commission, I remember how big this like dichotomy of suits was. So it was like this room full of like these white middle-aged men in suits, and then, you know, after it was over, they were doing their thing. Hi baby. And then after it was over, hi sweetie, thank you for that hug. You can feel mama needing that, huh? You're so sweet. Want to play in your pool blob? And then we went down to the oh, thank you, baby. Oh, jeez. We went down to Skid Row, and immediately, like, I don't know why it was just such a stark contrast. Look, a ladybug. Just such a stark contrast. But, you know, within 2-3 blocks, you've got these folks in suits, you know, voting on how to police folks. And then you walk down and, you know, people are digging in trash cans and butt naked and shooting up, and it's so many black folks. And that was the day that I, like, everywhere I looked, like after we left the police commission, I just noticed how many black folks are living in this dysphoria, and having come from this space of, you know, white businessmen who are police, you know, and it was so intense. And like I said, I had been there for years. Like, this wasn't something different, you know. We would always walk there and back, but there's just this one day that I remember the first guy I saw when we got back to Skid Row was a very dark-skinned person and digging through a garbage can, and he was half naked. And I feel like that was just like, you know, and then just everywhere I looked, it was just folks in complete, I mean, it's just crazy that these city, and this is why I don't believe in Democratic and the Republic anymore, or Republican, is because LA is a Democratic city with a Democratic mayor, and they don't give two fucks. No fucks at all. You know? And so that was like, But I just wanted to share that. I think one of the other more memorable things from like doing community watch was there was one time that there was spice was going around, and spice is like a synthetic weed kind of thing, I think, or laced with something. And we were on community watch one day, and we were in this intersection, one of the busier intersections in Skid Row. It was 5th and San Pedro, and like 12 people had fallen out or were like having seizures or like going zombie. And so it was just all these police, or not police, I mean there were a couple police, all these fire trucks and paramedics and shit. And I'm not trying to just talk shit, I'm just saying this is mere blocks away from City Hall, Police Commission, mere blocks, 3 or 4 blocks away. This is Skid Row, you know? And so I just wanted to share a little bit, because it really made me oh, you need help. I got you. It really made me realize how much of that like experience I had disassociated in the moment, probably, and like what I was like running on. It also made me realize like how fortunate I was. I got you. Yeah, I'm gonna put you on your sticks. Watch out. Okay. Oh, right. There you go. You gotta get your booty up there. It also just made me realize how fortunate I was, and like how many things were going on that I had no fucking clue, even within like my close relationships, including the person I was married to. And it's just I highly recommend to watch these stories. I just have a personal experience, so I'm a little bit more like exhausted, and that's why I'm sharing, because I just don't want to carry this with me. Like, it's just bringing up the past, which I wasn't really trying to, you know, go back to in any sort of way. But that's why I am so grateful that, you know, we're living a pretty chill, peaceful life. And I just wanted to talk about how fucking intense it really is. And I know that a lot more cities now have larger homeless populations because of just the country, and everything that comes with poverty and abuse and everything. And I'm so sensitive, and I just, like, it was very hard for me to see people in such despair in Skid Row. And I mean, I knew I was supporting like work and liberation, but like it was still so hard to just witness everything that people were having to go through just to survive. And so I just felt like getting this out. I highly recommend checking out Mark's channel, Soft White Underbelly, if you haven't. He's just really awesome at providing this space where folks feel comfortable enough to share. And he seeks out folks. He has an office down in Skid Row, or not close by, because folks from Skid Row go there. And so I highly recommend, you know, this kind of goes with like the integrating the shadow work and like challenging your belief system. If you've never known anyone addicted to drugs, or known anyone that's had to sell their body for survival, or known anyone that's been abused or molested, I highly recommend listening to these stories, because it can provide a certain amount of empathy, which is, you know, why the project exists. And Skid Row is a beautiful community. There's lots of folks who really look out for each other, and I want to end on that. Like, coming from white suburbia, I had never witnessed the amount of community that really exists when that's all folks have. Okay. No, I don't want that in my mouth. Thank you. And so I want to name that, because it's not all despair. There's tons of that there, and there's tons of that all over the place. But it's also a really amazing community. There's a lot of really amazing folks. People got your back, you know. And so I want to just let that be known. Like, it's not all crime and horror. There's really, really good folks in that community doing amazing work, or just merely existing. There's still a lot of really amazing folks, and just because someone's going through something or has done something in the past doesn't make them not a good person. And so I just want to say that too. But I've really been like in this space the past week of just remembering my experience and listening to these stories, and just knowing that it's happening everywhere, and it's just devastating. And so I highly recommend to please check out the Soft White Underbelly if you can. It's a lot of really amazing folks that have shared their stories, and a lot of things that you might not know about firsthand. And so challenging the belief systems is like by listening to other folks share what they've been through. So ultimately, I just don't judge folks. Like, you have no fucking clue what people have been through. And know that what people have done to survive, or how people are surviving, is the best that folks can do without any sort of support from, these organizations and municipalities that say they're there to protect and serve, or oh yeah, we're here to, I learned a lot about the carceral system and how that works, and I really want to underline that, just like, this isn't an individual problem. Like, this is a systemic issue all the way, and until things are done to support folks and like help people actually like live, which doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon, that these folks are still gonna suffer, and folks are still gonna be going through this. And so, I mean, I don't know the answer. I'm only one person. I can only do as much as I can, but I highly suggest watching Mark's channel. He does have GoFundMe too, if you feel like supporting. He does help out the folks that interview a lot, in a lot of ways, and he does everything non-judgmentally, which I really love. Ow. Okay, I gotta end this video because we're just all over the place. Oh, I hit my head. So yeah, that's where I'm at, and that's why I'm like very low in energy, but also why I wanted to share, because shit's really bad here in America, and like a lot of people don't know about that. So I hope you learn about it.